Oh, how exciting.
Yes. Hi, Bill. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Happy morning.
Thank you. And we'll be talking about our favorite subject today,
Well, which
photography.
I guess that's photography.
Yeah. So, interestingly, you and I met on November 2nd, 2013.
Good for you.
10 years ago at a class you were conducting at Aperture on how to find out what's unique in unique images.
That was not the title of it, because I would never title it so awkwardly. It was
Really?
probably titled How to Look at Pictures.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what I have that I wrote down.
Okay. Well, I understand that you keep the records, but I would never title it that awkwardly, because basically it's just how to see.
Okay.
So you come to me and you're blind, and I put my hands on your forehead and your eyes, and then you can see.
Yes.
The scales fall from your eyes.
Fall off. But you are very involved and interested in images that are unique. Am I correct?
I don't think so. I think I'm interested. No, I'll just correct you as we go along.
Yes.
I'm interested in powerful images, images that are going to shake you to the core. So
Okay.
maybe that's a unique experience.
Okay.
But the pictures themselves don't have to be one of a kind.
All right. You also have a deep-seated interest in teaching others.
It's true.
And also teaching them and showing them how to succeed in photography, correct?
Correct.
So I'm going to ask you a really easy question. Who said photography changed my life? It gave me a life.
Oh, let me think. Was it Plato? Socrates doesn't sound Greek.
No.
Sounds classic, but I don't think. Oh, I bet that was me.
Yes, that was you.
And it's true. It really did. It's funny how things work out in life, because I never would have anticipated the life that photography afforded me.
Yes. And so you get drawn to a particular image one day, and that starts the ball rolling for you. And that day you get hooked and things start happening. And which image was that?
Well, I don't know that that's actually, I think it's sort of a collective experience that after a certain point you go, wow, I really seem to be captivated by photography, or certain photographs, captivated, obsessed.
Yeah.
And I always like the idea. I like to ask people if photography changed their life. When did that happen? If people can actually look at something and go, I saw this photograph and it changed things for me forever. And I can answer that question in that I years ago did buy a photograph in some frame shop in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it was, and I bought it for not very much money and took it home, and it was a big deal. I didn't have any money, and I bought this picture for not very much money, and I would just stare at this picture and thought it was magical, and that it opened a whole life for me. So initially as a collector, and without any, it's only in retrospect that you can see the path. You don't see, oh, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to shop my brains out here in life and buy all these damn pictures. And I still think it's so funny that, so I'm a collector for 40 years, let's say. And it's probably longer at this point. But people used to come to my apartment and they would look around the living room and they would go like, "Oh, I didn't know you were a photographer." And I would go like, "My God, yes, yes, I'm a photographer, and I have 30 different cameras, and I'm unable to pick a very, one consistent style." I will say the pictures all have the same idea, but people would say, "I didn't know you were a photographer," and I would go like, "You're not looking. This is just, that's about the most insane reaction you could have. No, I'm not a photographer. I'm a shopper. I bought all these damn pictures."
Well, you're talking about seeing, and they weren't seeing really. Yeah.
Nope, they weren't.
So you became a collector, a curator, an author, a dealer, a gallerist.
All those things. Yep.
So sometimes you were fulfilling many of those functions simultaneously.
Yes, it's true. I just keep waiting for the Renaissance to catch up with me.
Yes, you were the Renaissance man. Oh, you.
Yes, I am. I'm on. I'm surfing in on that wave. I'm just,
Yeah,
here,
but you must have been at a lot of places at the same time. You must have
here
been
to announce the good news.
busy.
I'm spreading the gospel.
Yes.
Actually, that when I turned 50, I decided that I needed a life's mission because I didn't have one. And I decided that after not a lot of thinking, I will say it, that my life's mission would be to spread the enormous pleasure of photography, looking at, appreciating, responding to. And so that was a good thing that I figured that out one day and thought, well, so when I really don't know what I'm doing, I'll go like, "Oh, you could talk about photography. That's my fallback." And I'll be here in my apartment and go like, you're really being very boring today, Bill. You really should just leave the house." And I will, and I'll go look at photographs, and that's good. Or I'll go see somebody who has something to do with photography.
And that's when you became a teacher at some point.
Yeah, the teaching thing, people, I'm sad to report that people don't know that I taught for a really long time. I taught for over 25 years at the School of Visual Arts. And then I taught at Aperture, and I taught at ICP and workshops, and I give talks. And God forbid you should do a panel about photography and not invite me to either be the moderator or at least be on the panel. Teaching started because I somehow backed into teaching a history of photography class at the School of Visual Arts like 30 years ago, and I didn't know anything about the history of photography. And this is back in the day of slides too.
Yeah.
So one day a week for 3 hours.
With the carousels.
Oh my God, yes. I would go to the slide library and attempt to teach the young people my history of photography. And I will say a couple of things happened that a couple of takeaways from that. One is, I remember the experience of talking about Gary Winogrand one day and giving the textbook, what I took to be the textbook description of Gary Winogrand and why we should all love Gary Winogrand. And I go, "Well, how that?" And I went like, "You hate Gary Winogrand. Why are you promoting this sort of rhetorical bullshit about him?" So I went in the next time and I said, "Kids, all that stuff I said about Gary Winogrand, it's going to be on your test, but I don't respond to it, and I want to tell you that because I want you to make up your own damn mind about what you think is good, and I think it's important for you to be articulate about how you respond to things." And that was a really valuable lesson. And then there was another one that was sort of funnier, which was one day I was showing a photograph by Gary. I was showing a photograph and I knew the model in the picture. And I said, "Oh, that's Gary Schneider, the photographer." And he was naked in the picture. And you could hear this sort of reaction in the kids. They go, "Oh my God, well, he's naked." And I went, "Yeah. Oh, come on, kids. Once upon a time, everybody in this town was doing everybody else. So you got just relax. It's a business. You know, there are a lot of personalities in this field." And I realized that kids liked gossip. So anything I could add to the history of photography that had any kind of personal spin on it, they liked that. That would keep their attention. So that was, I will say that it was a more permissive era, perhaps, than that you could. I never really got into trouble as a teacher, because the only trouble I would have gotten in was speaking my mind. But I'm under the impression now that that's more difficult, that it's become oppressive and that there's not quite the latitude that teachers used to have. Too bad, because
A lot of constraints, yes.
yeah. So teaching was, for me, enlightening, because I found my own voice that way.
So let me ask you, as a teacher, did you act as a catalyst? Do you help articulate your students, articulate and connect? What
Yes.
is your strategy?
My strategy was to encourage people to just not repeat what was in to look at things for themselves. The hardest thing is for people to actually take responsibility for what they're seeing. And you want to rehearse your response, and you want to be articulate. And initially, I think that's hard to do because you're intimidated. You go, "What's my opinion worth?" You know, nobody, I'm just a kid, what do I know? You know a lot. And I think that the closer and sooner you can reach the point where your report about what you see is unique and personal and has some depth of experience, you know, that when I see this photograph, I'm moved because this reminds me of my childhood. The colors in this photograph exhilarate me. The more you can observe about the sensory experience of a photograph and be able to report that makes you valuable. Then I want to hang out with you, because you're really looking, you're really having some fun with it. And I was looking at pictures yesterday. I went to see the Van Gogh painting show at the Met, and I don't need to go picture by picture by picture. I very much vote with my feet. My feet walk me over. I'll see something and go like, "Oh, what's that?" I'll go look at that more closely. And I trust that completely, that I will not feel this requirement to look at everything closely, because I don't think everything's great. I think very few
No,
things
not everything
are great.
You know.
And I think that if you can trust yourself enough to imagine that some really powerful experience awaits you, you just got to show up and then look and respond. And there were two pieces that were just great. They were really just thrilling. And I don't look at painting much, so I don't have quite the vocabulary to talk about painting. But boy, I had a good time with them. So
yeah, so that begs the question, is the museum's mission to show you nothing but the best, or is it to chronicle art at a particular period?
ooh, wow. I don't know. You know, they seem to feel it's their responsibility to like get as many people in there as they can. I can remember a very funny exchange. I had done, I'd organized a show of one of the collections that I have two collections. One of the collections in Florida in a very, in a middle-sized city called Ocala, and they've got a very pretty museum called the Appleton. And I was intent on doing a show that would speak to what I thought that audience might be. And that was not going to be New York City audience. And it was going to be an audience that didn't have the experience of seeing lots of photography shows. So I wanted to be very entertaining. I wanted to take care of them. I wanted to delight them and surprise them. Give them, if you come to a show I've organized, I genuinely want to mess with you. You give me your ticket and I go like, okay, kids, this is going to be, I want you to have a really good time here. And I don't need you to look at everything. Just if you go see the show and there was one piece in it that was thrilling to you, that's great. That's a success for me. So I had organized the show. The walls were very brightly colored because I like that, because I thought, ooh, that'll entertain them. And then I didn't mess up the arrangement on the wall. I did some grids and I did some salon style, and I was being very, very conservative. And then I had this room that was yellow, like yellow, and I had hung a photograph quite low, like 3 feet off the floor, which is lower than you usually hang them. And the reason was because I wanted people to look at it. And I figured if I put it right in front of them, they'd just go like, yeah, that's great. But if I put it low, they would go like, oh my God, what's that doing down there? That's so, and it's dead true that they would stop and they would go, they'd bend over and they'd look at this picture, and I had them. You know, they were looking at the picture. That's what I wanted. And so I've done this installation, and the director of the museum emerges from his office after I've been in there for a couple of days hanging pictures. Then he's looking around and goes, oh, this is really, really good. A really nice job. This will be really successful. And the whole time he's talking to me, he's like looking to his side. He's looking at this picture that I've hung so low. And then he looks at me and he says, did you mean to hang this here? And you go like, yeah, I did. I really, really did. He said, well, don't you think that'll slow the egress from the exhibition? The exiting, you know, well, won't that slow people down from getting out of here? And I went, oh, so your idea with this museum is get them in and get them out. I said, if there's a God, they'll sit here and look at this picture and they'll talk to each other and they'll have a good time. And I did a show in Amsterdam once at Foam, and Foam is just a spectacularly good venue. Great staff. It's I like to work in spaces that were something else before. A big white space is very hard to do a show in, because if you come into what had been a big white space, chances are I painted it and added things to it to make it more architecturally challenging. Speed bumps, that's what I described it as, like put speed bumps in shows. So I've got this big room, and the room's a little too big because I can't get, you want the pictures to reference each other somehow. You want to look
Right, they want to converse with one another.
Yeah, I think that's so funny to say to a museum director, like, oh, I'm just listening, I'm here listening to the pictures talk to each other. So I do it, and it looks okay. And then I say to them, could you go get 24 chairs? And because they're Dutch, they go get 24 chairs for me. And I come in the next day and they put them around the room like we're gonna have a big square dance. And I went, no, thank you, that's great. Yes, the idea here is just put them in the middle of the room. Put them in the room so you can't get from one side to the other without moving the chairs out of the way. And the effect of this was that at the best of days, it looked like a bus station, because people would go in and sit down and talk, and you could see that people would pull a chair up next to a photograph to look at it more closely. And I went, oh man, that's the best. That people really trusted me enough, and they trusted the situation, trusted themselves enough to enjoy it, to take it in, to respond, and that's great.
Well, it's about being interactive with your public, and that's the best thing ever, right?
Yes.
Interact and give the visitors the freedom to do that.
Yes, and to encourage them to.
Yeah, to prod them to do it.
And everybody's route should be different. That's
yeah.
The first really big show I ever did was in France, in Arles, and the first room must have had 70 pictures in it. It just had an extraordinary number of pictures in it, and I'd have them painted. I painted the walls red. I like red, and because it puts people on notice that, oh my God, red. But in fact, there's so many pictures that you really don't even notice that
it's covered up.
It's red, and it was. I don't like signage in that situation. Just look at the pictures. You can come back later and get a checklist and see what something was, but I want the stuff to land on you and see how you respond. You don't have to. It's museums. Museums have a problem in that, or museum audiences, I think, are persuaded that they're supposed to like everything. That it's in the museum. You better damn.
They also appeal to a much broader audience than galleries do.
Say that again.
They appeal to a much broader audience than galleries do. People.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that they appeal. It's a it's a tourist attraction. You're like, we better go to the Met.
Exactly.
We better go see those damn paintings. And I think that parents are so out of whack with their kids if they're just going like, okay, we're going to the museum today. Don't touch anything. Don't talk. Don't run. Don't. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. You're just going to see the best thing ever. It's going to be amazing. The kid shows up and the kid's like this, like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And I'm from the school of thought that goes like, I hope there's something here that really excites you, because then you'll want to come back. I once lured my then 8-year-old nephew to the Museum of Modern Art with the promise of a green helicopter. And I can remember we were walking down the hallway and he comes to a dead stop and he says, hey, this is a museum. Felix Gonzalez Torres was the most genius at audience engagement, because he had that one candy piece where it was all candies, hard candies on the floor. And you'd see some kid who'd been beaten to death by his parents going like, don't talk, don't. And he'd come into the room with all this candy for free that you could take. And kid would just go like, no, mom and dad, I'll be sitting here in the candy. And hopefully the kid will always remember the candy day at the Museum of Modern Art, wherever he was.
So let me ask you a question. I know you love teaching.
Yes.
But what does it do for you? And is there some sort of symbiotic process going on with the students? Is that a back and forth? Do you feed off of one another? Yeah, that's what I'd like.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a story of when I was teaching in SVA, we gave a very big, I used to team teach, so there were two of us. And after I was teaching the history, I was teaching a different class. And the assignment at the end of the first semester could be described as burdensome had you not been doing the homework all along. If you'd been doing the homework all along, which involved quite a bit of writing, you were okay, because basically we just asked you to give us all the writing you'd been doing that semester and just clean it up. But if you hadn't been doing it and you were otherwise shiftless, you had a lot of work to do. And we expected it on time and whatever. And I can remember reading this one young woman's homework. And it was quite a bit of work to read these homeworks because they were very long. And this was a woman who I liked a lot. I liked teaching her because I thought she was absorbing it. I thought she was responding to it. She wasn't very articulate, very verbal. She was mostly passive and taking it in. But you had to, in the homework, you had to write. And so I could see that around halfway through the process of her writing all these essays, she understood what we'd been trying to teach her.
Yeah.
And that for me was the most spectacular success, that she was different. And now she was different. Now she had a different skill set. Now she would walk into a gallery or a museum or a magazine, anything, and she brought to it her own sensibility, and she could respond, and she would. And that to me was a huge success as a teacher.
Yeah, you were communicating with a sentient being, somebody
Yeah. And she was able to process it.
Yeah. So the value of a visceral response is a key to you, the response to an image. And you advise people to collect images that float their boat, right? And convincingly, you add that a good collector always finds the money. So let me ask you, are viscera more reliable than gray matter in collecting, and is that sound investing?
Well, the first part is always yes, that trust your gut. That's much more, you'll get a much bigger reward than trusting your brain. I don't talk to collectors who are there for the investment. That's a different, you want to do that, get an art advisor, spend your money doing that. That's just not what I do. It's, I'm no help that way, because it's not very fun for me. That if you're just going to do it as an investment, what's the point of you being engaged with me? However, invariably, if you have really trusted your gut and your gut has developed over a period of time, you'll be a much savvier collector, that you will get there. You get there a little ahead of the other people. I like the idea that you're looking at something and you're talking about it. People go like, well, it's what your eye is. An eye is actually the ability to synthesize everything going on and respond and say, this is good, before other people. Other people will get there, possibly. So that's what I got. I've got an eye, and I never thought I had an eye. And then one day someone challenged me. They said I had a good eye, and I said, don't flatter me. And I thought about it, and I recognized, yeah, I do have a good eye. And I think having a good eye is just a question of putting it all together faster than other people. So that's what I've got to say about having a good eye.
So let me ask, what is the one thing that has to be in an image that is non-negotiable? Is it balance? Is it magic? Is it secrets? So those are your terms.
Yeah.
What is non-negotiable that absolutely has to be in an image, or else you're not interested?
Those two things, magic and balance, secrets and balance. When I sort of stumbled upon that approach, the ones that have magic, and so balance is in large part an aesthetic consideration. It's well composed. It doesn't have to be formal. I do like formal pictures, but it has to fit in your eye in a way that is pleasing and surprising. So that's the balance part of things. And the secrets part is that the best pictures insist on you collaborating with the artist. That somehow the artist has put something forward in the image that makes you question everything. You go, why am I so engaged by this? What's going on? Why? And you fulfill some part of a dialogue between you and the image, and that's, you become so personally and uniquely invested in it it's powerful for you forever.
That's why you keep going back to the image.
Yes.
You're never finished with it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, you're making me think, I'm trying to think of pictures I'm tired of. And the really good ones, if they're really, really good, I'm not tired of them. I'll stumble across something I haven't looked at in a long time ago. Oh my God. Oh, this is great. Just great.
Yes.
It's funny. I like talking to artists who bring some real curiosity to the conversation, real genuine, who will listen, who will speak, all those things. So I get approached. I'm not so hard to find. There are a couple of stumbling, a couple of things you have to step over to get to me. You just don't call me up. You got to make a case for why we're talking. And so some young woman recently, who I have not yet talked to, but who asked if I would look at her work and respond. So I looked at the work, and I saw something in the work that I'd never seen in another set of photographs, ever, ever, ever. And I thought she was doing something compositionally that was staggeringly good. And I'm having trouble articulating exactly what it is. I got as far as, it's as if she has an infrared filter when she photographs and makes compositions. Because she's basically, this body of work is a documentary project, but I think she's a kind of genius structuralist. She does stuff that I was quite captivated by, and that's great. You find an artist who's really good, and that particularly if they're doing something you've never seen before. So that's fun.
There's a photographer who said, I'm not sure who it was, that if looking through the viewfinder, what you see is something you've already seen, don't click.
Yeah.
Something that's right. That's similar to
I'm sure there are 20 variations on that, but that's right. It's funny that lately, there was a big Avedon show this past month, and it was a great show and really put together thoughtfully and completely entertaining. And and he didn't look through the viewfinder. Do you know that?
He didn't look through the viewfinder.
No, he would be next to the camera and talk to
to the person.
to the person. And okay, good for him.
About
He was
Avedon,
there. You got to show up.
yeah. About Avedon and all these great photographers of the period. I'm talking about the 60s. When I came to the United States, I tried to get a job as an assistant to one of the great ones, you know, Avedon, Penn, Sokolsky, Hero, and you just couldn't get those jobs. You just
The
couldn't.
guys who got those jobs, I can remember two photographers who worked for Penn, who I met. And when they said they'd worked for Penn, and they actually had worked for Penn, I said, that's great. If he vetted you, let's talk. Let's see what you got going on. And in the two instances I'm thinking of, the work had didn't look like Penn at all, but it had the same care and the same resolution to find something, to solve the problem of how to make a really, really magical image.
Yeah. what they learn is a mindset, really.
Yes, and a kind of care.
Yeah.
A mindset's a really good description of it. Yeah, I think that he seems to have encouraged a kind of excellence, personal excellence,
Yeah.
diligence.
So you like people in photographs usually, or the intimation of human presence in photographs. So what about landscapes and still lives? I know you mentioned at least one landscape which had deep impact on you. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How many landscapes or still lives have you collected?
Well, a thing that happened was, after looking at them for a long time, and the first collection consists of pictures of people, or that seem to be people, in which you can't see their eyes for some reason. They're just distorted or obscured, and I like that. And that's what I looked at and looked at and looked at and looked at. And so at some point you go like, Jesus, you ought to spend a little time looking at some landscape photographs just to get in it, you know, don't you like missing something here. And the same with still life. And so I did the homework and looked at things. I don't know that there was, you know, who I really like, who I think it surprises me, is Andreas Gursky. I think he sees magically that he's a conjurer of events.
He's a visual inventor, really, I think.
Yes.
Right.
And every Gursky show I've seen, I think I'm awestruck by a couple of pictures each time. I go, oh my God, look at this. What a journey. Just like, so, and then those are mostly landscapes. Then on the still life side of things, I was obsessed lately with Joel Meyerowitz still life series. He's done two still life series, one about Cezanne's studio and one about Miranda's studio. And they were done as good looking books and very, very tidy. He's a very complete artist, Joel Meyerowitz. And I became really kind of obsessed with this still life of Cezanne's hat. So I spent a lot of time looking at the image and loving it and trying to articulate for myself what it is that I respond to, and I respond to the shape in the image. It appears to be a black and white image, which is in fact a color image. And so you go, what's a little something sly going on here? Because is this really gray or is this?
Is it a book?
Pardon?
Is it a book?
It is a book. Yeah. And an exhibition. And the picture I like is a bowler hat on a table, and there's something perfect about it. The shape is perfect. God forbid you. I love a good metaphor, so this has got some nice, powerful metaphors in it because it is mankind. It's a picture of mankind. It's a history of mankind in a still life, and that's, if somebody can pull that off, that's great. Also, I remember the first time I ever saw Joel Meyerowitz in person. Joel Meyerowitz has like no body fat at all.
Yeah,
After a thunderstorm or something, see power lines that have been
dangling.
out and they'll like be snapping all over the place. That's Joel Meyerowitz, pure electricity.
Yeah, he's a versatile photographer, but the most versatile photographer I can think of, now that you bring it up, is Irving Penn, because of whatever he touched turned to gold. It was amazing. It's amazing fashion, still life, food photography,
Genius,
landscapes.
absolute genius. I can remember seeing
Anything
a
like it.
show. I can remember seeing a show in Paris at the MEP, at the Maison Européenne de la Photographie, and it was Irving Penn, San Francisco Ballet, 1960 something. And I can remember, so it's group dancers. And I can remember looking at the show and going, this is bad. This is bad. Imagine a bad Irving Penn show. It was like impossible to imagine that he'd failed me, because he never had failed me before. My wise advice to photographers is that if they really want to learn how to make pictures, they should buy a carton of cigarettes, check into a hotel room with all the Irving Penn books, and spend a week studying the Penn books. And then it's all there. I don't know why you need the carton of cigarettes, but whatever.
You mentioned La Maison Européenne de la Photographie, and it makes me think of photographers that are known in Europe, but totally unheard of in the United States. And one of them is Sergio Larraín. Have you ever? A magnificent photographer, in my view. You never hear about him here. And he was part of Magnum. I think he was ushered into Magnum by Cartier-Bresson personally.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And
so there's been a Larraín show that Agnès Cyr put together, who used to be the Fondation Cartier-Bresson.
Last one to talk to him, I think. She was the last one to communicate with him, because he had absconded into the desert with his son. He wants to give him, he wanted to educate his son and cut himself entirely from photography. Didn't want to have anything to do with books or anything about him. And she convinced him and put out the latest publication on Sergio Larraín.
Yeah.
He became a hermit.
That show that she organized, which I saw in Arles, maybe I saw it in Paris too, I can't remember. But it was one of those wonderful events for me where you walk in and you go like, oh my God, I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
There's one picture in it that I have written about that has a structural thing in it with two like trapezoids against each other. And I can't remember what the information in the picture is, but the way he handles the light and the geometries of it are great, really. So that's a really good book for, there is a book for photographers who should just get over themselves and look at something they don't know, because they don't know that work and it's really good.
You know the name of the book?
Sergio Larraín.
Sergio Larraín, really? Yeah, I've never heard of it.
She was up all night on what to title it. I don't know what the title of it is, but I'll bet you if you Googled it, you could find it that way. If
you're on Google FR.
I think you just Google it and find it. She also did, she did a Wright Morris show. And Wright Morris is an American photographer whose name I always knew, but I didn't know the pictures. And my God, what a revelation.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really is, for me, you're in a room all by yourself and you go, man, I'm dancing. I'm just dancing through this show. And again, I found a picture that particularly rocked me, rocked my boat, floated my boat, as you would like, and rocked my world. And gosh, what a good thing. My favorite experience like that is that, so the first collection, which were magical heart-stopping images of people where you can't see their eyes. So that's number one collection. Number two collection are American groups.
Right.
1965. And so I'm doing the first collection because the second collection happened later. And I'm in the Met one day in the summertime and by myself. And there's this show, this group show that was in the contemporary wing in sort of this middle level gallery. It really appeared to be a throw that some curator had put together, maybe about families, I don't remember. And there was a Bill Brandt of Dubuffet's eye. And my God, I almost pooped my pants. It was so good. It really was electric. And I've told this story, but I just wanted to grab people and go, look at this picture. Oh my God, do you see this picture? How extraordinary it is? And it's a portrait of his eye, up really, really close. People think it's an elephant's eye because it's all crinkly and everything. I went, oh my God. Excuse me. I've got to have this picture. And two things happened. One was I went, this person's eye is wide open. What's going on? What's that about? And I recognize I recognized that the first collection had whatever the search was in that collecting, and there was definitely a search.
Yeah.
It had gotten to the end of the road on that one, and the eye was open symbolically and literally, and it took me 2 years to get a print of that picture, and it cost me more than I'd ever spent on a photograph. Oh my God, what's great. I'll relate a story that you haven't heard. And so I've been buying these photographs of groups, and I like them because they're really like the stepchildren of photography, that I don't think people pay attention to them.
Vernacular photographs.
They are, for the most part, vernacular photographs, except when you know who the photographer was, in which case then. Anyway, I bought this picture. A new dealer found me, and she has really good taste, and she was offering me stuff, and so she'd send me this PDF of a photograph that was kind of, well, look, what's this picture? It's kind of strange. It was all it's men on risers seated, and so you see their tops of their torsos and their heads, and it's like a checkerboard. So it has a graphic
grid.
Yeah, impressiveness with some stuff that's missing. It's imperfect. And I found the picture has some condition issues with the mount. And so I got it framed and brought it home. And it's big. It's like 20 by 30, I guess. And I found that I was dancing with this picture. I would go and get the picture, And I would just like rock back and forth, having this completely one-on-one specific communication with this picture. It made me feel good. It has a detail in it that I think is very funny. The upper right-hand corner of this photograph has condition problems, so the emulsion's messed up and something. So for a museum, perhaps they would go like, "Oh, you know, we could never take this picture because it's got condition issues." For me, it's a picture of the rapture. It's as if all these dudes are being subsumed into some kind of other place. And that's hard to photograph. So the picture is terribly meaningful for me, and it really is in the center of my apartment in this completely strange place.
You still have it?
What?
You still have it?
Yeah, I do. I have gotten, yes, I do. It's right. It's in front of a mirror, so that if you're looking in the mirror, you have to see the picture. And I just love it. It's so personal, and I'm happy to have it. And it's a surprise because it's certainly not a picture you've ever seen.
So, I know the picture, of course, of Dubuffet's eye, because I have your book and it's in there. Towards the end, it's a one before last image, if I remember correctly.
You do remember correctly. It might actually be the last one, intentionally so.
I think it's the one before last.
Maybe.
But and the thing that comes up for me, and I'd like to ask you the question, is would it change anything for you if you had it from a reliable source that it is in fact not Dubuffet's eye?
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't do anything.
Affect me. It wouldn't affect me. I mean, you find out after you've seen the picture that it's Dubuffet, and you go, "Oh, cool! Somebody who was a seer. How ironic that we'll get a picture of the seer's eye."
Yeah.
So that's just icing on the cake.
So you often speak of instinct, right? Instinct is a major thing for a photographer. But there's something else also, and there's serendipity for me. And do you think that instinct and serendipity work hand in hand in the case of a great photograph, like the proverbial bird that flies into the frame, or someone shifting their gaze as the shutter is clicked and it becomes a classic photograph or something like that? Do you think, what is in your mind the role of serendipity in the case of great photographs? Does it play a role?
Absolutely. For my experience of them, I mean, the serendipity begins with, what am I doing here today? Looking at this picture. It was meant to be. It's when you walk in you open it, life is a hallway full of doors. And if you don't open the doors, how are you going to know what's there, what's to be seen? So you got to show up. That's how you see things. You show up, and you've got to show up a lot so that your chances of something being serendipitous are increased.
Yes, but for the photographer, there are some photographers who have more encounters with serendipity than others.
Yes, and I don't know what that's about, but I think that's the same for a collector. You just got to be hungry.
Yes.
And if you're hungry, then chances are you'll get fed. And not perfect analogy, but nonetheless. Yeah, and also it's the sort of thing that when you're editing something and you want to it must, I would imagine that a photographer going through what used to be a contact sheet would go and they go like, yeah, this is what I meant. Oh, what's this?
Yes.
You know, where the bird flew into the frame, and somehow the bird flying into the frame makes the picture. I quite liked this recent exhibition of Lee Friedlander in New York that Joel Cohen curated. And I know the Friedlander, I've experienced the Friedlander material over a long period of time and have respect for it. It doesn't engage me so very much. I don't have a need to buy the new Lee Friedlander book. However, Joel Cohen looking at that work and putting it together and sequencing it, oh my God, it was good. It was such a treat. You go, this guy he's really looking, he's really gonna take us on a good journey. Great show.
That says something about him as a director, because that's
Sure.
what directors do, you know.
Yeah, it was not, he didn't, he took the assignment very seriously, but I think he went in with a very primal
Yeah.
energy. Because like, I'm really gonna see this stuff.
Yeah.
Good show. And if you go online and download the checklist, it gives you the journey. You can see the road that he traveled on it.
Path, yeah.
I still can't. There's an image in it that when I take photographs of pictures at an exhibition, it's revealing to me that I've somehow had some need to come. I imagine that I'm going to come back and look at this picture or the pictures that I've taken pictures of. And there's one in it that I had seen many times over the years, and I'm fascinated by it. It has lots of vertical divisions in it, and I have not sorted it out yet, but I will.
Which gallery is it?
About it? What?
The gallery?
I was a Luring Augustine.
Yes. I have to ask you this question.
And there's a book too.
I have to ask you, were you ever tempted by a Cindy Sherman image?
I was Cindy Sherman, yeah.
You have seen Cindy Sherman's.
That is, well, first off, one of the criteria would have been that she's not looking at the camera, because that was my thing. So I'm also a lover of the three-legged dog, that I would go to auctions and look for the one that's gonna not be popular. And there was a Christie's auction years ago, and there was the Cindy Sherman in it. I'd never seen it before. And I've seen lots of Cindy Sherman shows, so I was surprised that this picture existed. And I could get it at a then non-exorbitant price. The picture has some condition issues. The color shifted in it a bit. So it's just a little dull. And I think the reason why it's not an iconic Cindy Sherman is that you can really see it's really a picture of her. She's not really tricked out as some kind of character.
Hasn't morphed into something else.
So that it's a picture of her seeming to be sort of vulnerable. And critically, that's not what she does. So right. It's the pictures in the book, by the way, the book that you're referring to being The Unseen Eye, Photographs from the Unconscious, which was published 10 years ago by Thames and Hudson and Aperture and Actes Sud, L'œil invisible en français.
Yes.
And when we were going to put it in the book, her studio sent me a wonderful transparency of it. And so the reproduction in the book is better looking than the picture in real life. And it's worth taking some time to sort it out, to seek it out. What a good question. Thank you. I've never been asked that question. You want to know the best question I ever got asked as a collector?
Go ahead.
So I had done a little show at a boarding school in New Jersey that I had attended, the Lawrenceville School. And it was one of the first shows I've done with my collection. And I was doing a walkthrough one day with kids who were about 13, 14, let's say. And one of the kids says, so like, why do you have to own the pictures? And my brain just exploded. I went, whoa, because then they're mine, which I said it with all covetousness and shock that I would be so revealing about my complete shallowness in life. But it was true. They were mine. They are mine, you know. And I subscribe to that caretaker theory that they're yours for a period of time, and then you put them back into the pool, and other people get to look at it and have at it, have fun. I gave a bunch of pictures to another school I went to, Andover, which has a great gallery called the Addison Gallery of American Art, and they're going to get another bunch of pictures. And the reason why I like them as the recipient is because they really like them. They really honor them and show them, and they're not going to end up in some filing, in some storage room for the next 100 years. And when I was a kid and went there, I found photographs to be a huge refuge. I didn't know it at the time, but it was really, I liked that space of looking at photographs. And so I feel really indebted to them, and they're happy to have them, and they're actually using them very much the way I like. So they can have them now, and you can have them. You can go there and go like, I want to see those Bill Hunt photographs. Well, I mean, you know, that book, I've done a couple of other books that I've done for myself. And I like books a lot. I got a lot of books.
That's a whole other conversation, yes.
The
For a book.
Trying to do a big book on these groups and finding that the material is so rich for me. I just love looking at them, and I get distracted. It's really hard to work on the book because I go like, oh, look at this picture's so good. And I find I have yet to articulate what I think the point of the book is. So when I get that, it'll help. I think about it a lot, and stay tuned. We'll do another talk.
Conversation, yeah.
That book happens.
You know, it was blindingly hot that day in Arles when I went to see your American groups before 1950 collection in the old Archbishop's Palace. I remember very clearly. It was the only collection in the building. That's all they were showing was your collection. And
oh, I'm sorry because I know you wanted to see other things.
No, but it was. I noticed that, and you know, and it stayed with me, and I remember it still. I mean, you know, in Arles, it's always blindingly hot in summer, but that particular day was the worst.
And actually, I can't remember. It was kind of air conditioned. I much preferred it with the windows open. I like rooms that have light, that have natural light and real air. And you can't always persuade the presenters. Arles has increasingly gone for the rooms that are climatisé. And, you know, it's a little, I like being comfortable, but I also like being challenged. Anyway, that those rooms in that building were so exciting for me. I lobbied for that.
Huge, they were huge.
I describe it as if the Pope had a mistress, that's where she'd live.
It was the Archbishop's palace, as a matter
And you
of
know,
fact.
the funniest thing was, I had called up Francois Vel, who was the director and my friend.
Well, yeah.
Can you get me a moose head, a big taxidermy moose head? Because so often in America, you would have encountered this type of photograph in an old union hall or an old place that had a moose's head. It's this kind of American silly thing. So the thing that then happened was nobody in France knows the word for moose in French, which is l'orignal. Did you know that? L'orignal. Orignol.
Rigon.
No, NOL. Anyway, l'orignal. And so they can't find me a damn moose head. Yeah, the calling around taxidermy place in Paris, and I said, try Switzerland. They've got moose in Switzerland. And then I show up and they have branded the summer's Rencontres with a moose head. So, which was
they branded the whole event.
Yeah, but I couldn't get a moose. I had a little photograph of a moose in it for myself. But what they had was they had a big bust of Marianne, and I wrapped a big American flag around her neck, and that was my moose head.
Do you know what Slate magazine said about your exhibit?
Who? Which magazine?
Slate.
Oh no, what'd they say? They like it?
They said, for the collector and curator W.M. Hunt, when it comes to group photos, the bigger and the weirder, the better.
Absolutely.
But you say there's a kind of collective insanity to it all. So you agree with them?
Yeah. Oh, I love when people go, so how many people in this picture? And you know, there are thousands of people in a picture. And my answer is always 70. They go, 70? I went like, how do I know how many people there are? Excuse me again. So I do like unfathomable numbers of people in a picture where they look like
ants.
It becomes this organic thing, and it looks like a wave. Looks like a Clifford Ross photograph, or it looks like lichen or moss or something. It transfers into something else, and that's very cool for me. And people say like, "Oh, you must love looking at all the little faces," and I go like, "I can't see that one." So, no. In Arles, there was I took a picture and had it reproduced on a big piece of canvas, and so it was about 30 feet long. And the reason for that was, one was to fill a space that otherwise I didn't know how to fill it. But it was so that people could go, they could look at the damn faces. You want to go look at the damn faces, here are the damn faces, go look at, knock yourself out, folks. So I like organic weirdness.
So if you really mean it when you say that a collection is a manifestation of the collector's unconscious.
Yes, I do.
How does this apply to this collection and you?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I can remember years ago, the first collection, I'd been in analysis for several years, and I was in the living room and I'm like looking at the pictures and I'm like, oh my God, no. Oh my God, no, 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 no. This is my unconscious manifest in these pictures. It was like frightening. And I thought, geez, everybody will know everything about me when they walk in. But people are stupid, so they didn't take the time. With the group photographs, I'm not quite sure how it represents my unconscious in quite in a personal journey kind of way. I do think it's a very right brain, left brain thing. The two collections are very they're very complementary.
Yeah.
Is much more the groups, the way the photographer made them necessarily was different because it's a bigger setup, it's longer, it's more considered, it's you're gonna be in a tower, you gotta have herders bringing people in, and I like all that. It's like a little movie of the week.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't know what it. You know what? I'll probably figure this out tonight. You will have prompted this out of me. That
Be a call.
I can really tell you what it is about these pictures that is me. So
what happens to collected images? Do they go on the wall? Do they end up in flat files away from damaging sunlight? Does anybody get to see them ever again? What, you know?
very good question. And I've, you know, and a lot of reasons I'm really done. Whatever the psychological urgency of collecting may have been, it's different now. And it's unwieldy. There are too many pictures. I can't handle it anymore. There was a couple of summers ago, I started looking at pictures with a hard hat on because I was afraid that they'd fall and start hitting me. For a collector, having them out and up is not the be all and end all. It's the having them that's completely neurotic and not very attractive. It's like having a Rolodex of.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I'm all done. Come and get them out of here. I want to do this book, and then I want to be a dolphin. I don't want to have any more stuff. I want to be just shiny and sleek, and I want to be Joel Meyerowitz is who I want to be. Because I think I like that. I like that he has agency. To, like the young people say, that he just seems to be independent of stuff. That he's probably as neurotic as anybody you'll meet, but from outward appearances, he just seems to have the world in his grasp. He just seems to see wonderfully and then navigate life.
Yeah. Apparently,
probably the complete construct on my part, but it's very revealing that that's who I want to be. So
apparently, according to him, he walks the streets of New York with a tripod and an 8x10 attached at the other end. And he looks around and then he puts his tripod down and takes the picture.
Yeah, we all do
that. But with smaller cameras.
Yes.
Darius Himes did a wonderful catalog at Christie's for your de-accessioning your collection. 40 years worth of collecting, you know, that's a lot. And apparently you wanted to have something to say about where the images would go next, perhaps, and also perhaps to recoup some of your investment. So how did all that go now that it's behind you?
The end game is that I was trying to deaccession, so that was successful. I like Darius very much. I was happy with the collaboration.
Yeah.
I could have picked a worse time probably to sell pictures because it was like at the height of COVID, and but the point of the exercise was to get them up and out. And that's really the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that was a very good selection of pictures. And to Darius's credit, he put some wonderful curiosities in there. And it was so reflective of me as a collector that he didn't just cherry pick the really good stuff. So he had some very funky stuff in there. And I know I've talked to people who bought stuff that was maybe on the less expensive part of the spectrum. And I'm so happy they have them because it was meaningful for them that they took it out of the collection. So
That says a lot about Darius as a curator.
I thought Darius brought a great sensibility to it. I was very happy with the collaboration.
Yeah. It's a nice thing to hear about Darius because I like him a lot.
I like him a lot too.
Yeah.
I've known him since he was a baby.
Say that again?
I've known him since he was a baby.
Really?
When he was at Photo Eye and he was like
I
22 or something.
Yes.
He comes with a really good history.
Yes, he does. Yeah, you've seen the interview.
I have.
With,
Nicely done. I like the interviewer too.
that was my second one. I did another one before that with just him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
You can
You're
go,
all pals.
you can go back and see it. So, do you think that new photography only galleries have a future? You know, like galleries that operate like Howard Greenberg or Deborah Bell or Parker Stevenson, who only show photography, because a lot of photo galleries, photo only galleries, migrated to showing other forms of art as well. And then
Oh, you mean the ones that now show art?
yes, exactly. So you do.
I always thought that. I always like when artists say, "Oh, so this is my commercial work, and this is my fine art work," and I try to correct them and say, "You mean your mighty fine art?" It's everybody has a path. God bless them. God bless the Deborahs and Parkers and Howards. And as a former gallery owner and a former dealer, and it's hard. It is hard, hard, hard. The pleasure of it is reinventing yourself every day, that you would go and go like, how am I going to get people to come in and buy these pictures? My favorite part of it, the part that I missed the most, was a lot of the interaction with artists. Not all of the interaction with artists, but I liked being able to promote talent. I thought that was just great. I thought that was that was a good job to have, to put stuff up that you liked talking about.
Must be cathartic.
Yeah, I will say that I stumbled across something one day that I had a friend who was just so aggressive about me wanting to show her work. And I finally said to her, I said, why do you want me to show your work? And she said, because you just never shut up about your artists. And I went, oh my God, if that's a criticism, that's great. If my reputation was that I wouldn't shut up about my artists, I thought, well, that's good. The thing that I was able to say to this artist was, you don't want to show with me because I won't know how to talk about your pictures with the same enthusiasm you would want me to talk about them.
Yeah.
And that was true. And then I found that was a good way to actually push back a little bit.
That addresses the question of showing with the right gallery also, you know, because some galleries will promote your art and talk about it in a convincing way because they believe in it, and other galleries won't, you know, so that's very important.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, I never liked to be sold stuff. I mean, if I liked something, I tell you, I really like this. But the idea of someone telling me that it's important, you're like, oh,
Like
that thank you for sharing this this incredibly important work with me.
what do you think of the way photography is being taught today? And
Hot?
taught, and is teaching a matter of transmission or listening to the new generation? Do young people express themselves differently today, you find, in schools?
I don't know. I never went to anybody else's class. So I never knew what, I can read the books that they write, and I'm like looking at those. A thing that doesn't change is that the percentage of really, really extraordinary pictures is still so small. You really just, for me, I'm just waiting to be knocked out. That's the best thing you can do. It's just like, wow me. But it doesn't happen very often. And I bear that in mind when I go looking. I go, if I see something that's really, oh, I will direct your audience to something that if you go on my website, which is WM Hunt, there's a whole slew of short pieces that I wrote called Some Really Good Ones. Because I worked on a project during lockdown called Great Photographs, or at least Some Really Good Ones. And this was the rabbit hole I was going down every day. I'd get up and I'd write about some picture that I thought was great. And I would write down why I thought it was great. So it seemed not to be a book. It seemed to be something else. It seemed to be a diary. So that's how it has a sequence to it, which makes sense to me, but you don't need the sequence. They do one follows after another, and you could actually you could go to the bathroom for several days and get very far with it. You could read it on your phone. Yeah. And I'm very proud of them, and they're very personal. And I think that the intention of it is to challenge you, the reader, to respond. Do you think this is great? Do you think my reasons for thinking it's great are worthwhile, or what? I want you to look. I want you to look too. So I'm very proud of that. Those, and I hope people will look at them. Free. It's free. And it's really enlightening. You get to see all these photographs that you never thought about.
I haven't looked at it yet, but I will definitely do that.
Well, good. I look forward to your looking at it.
But going back to what you said about there are so few really remarkable images out there, there's it makes me think of the reason why is it that when we talk about remarkable photographers like Cartier-Bresson, Kertész, or Bill Brandt, or even Irving Penn, you tend to see mostly the same 200 or 300 pictures.
Even Irving Penn?
Even Irving Penn, who is a great...
No, he's the best. He's the best.
Yeah. So and that says something, because Cartier-Bresson has taken close to 500,000 pictures, but you only see the same.
Oh, that.
200.
You gotta keep looking. That's what the delight is, just to keep looking at stuff. Stuff repeats and repeats and repeats. When I taught SVA, and just as I was finishing, they seemed to be putting together a list of 200 photographs that you had to know before you graduated. And I thought, well, that's so claustrophobic. I guess you got to know it so you can look at the other stuff. But if you're just going to know it and stop there, you don't know anything.
Right.
Just saying.
So what happens when one of your class graduates and you bid them farewell? And do you anticipate that you'll see some of them, that you'll cross paths somewhere on another day?
Every so often. one of them will call me up and go like, I'm doing this series of conversations on Zoom. Would you like to do one? And I'll go like, who are I got some of them that they still call and check in with me, and it's just great. I'm so happy. When they have had some successes, I think that's marvelous. I'm so proud of them, proud for them that they kept at it and they had something remarkable to say and they did it. So
Yeah.
That's just a great big day when one of them has success. So,
of course. In French, we say that education is what's left after we've forgotten everything.
Say it in French.
L'éducation est ce qui reste après qu'on ait tout oublié.
Yes.
And that says that, education or going to higher education is about creating a way to look at things, acquiring a mindset.
I think your responsibility as an adult is to continue to educate yourself. And the way you educate yourself is to just show up and react. Say, yes, no, let's do stuff. So, curiosity.
So we had a great time. I had a great time.
Thank you very much.
We should do this again.
Part 2. If you'll do 2 with Darius Hines, I want my time back. Thank you very much. I love talking, and obviously, I guess I love listening to it too. But I do think that the takeaway from this for your audience, for me, would be curious, and then try to make the report on what your curiosity has taken you to, so that you can have a conversation with me. You can come back to me and go like, did you see that show? You should see that show because there's this one picture in it that's going to change my life. That's what you want.
Yes. And I'm just curious to know what you're going to get your hand into next.
Well, this book I'm working on, one of the things that I like doing is that the idea of a conversation between pictures. I do like when somehow the juxtaposition of a couple pictures reveals something else. So I like that, and I hope that that's how the book should behave, that you should I want individually, I set myself a goal that every page should just explode in your brain, and you go like, oh my God, and that's hard to sustain.
It is.
So maybe a way of handling it then is to do arrangements of pictures that somehow some have their own relationships. But I like that. I want people to react.
Do you have a date for publishing a book?
Do I have a publisher would be an even better question.
Do you have a publisher?
No. But I do know who it's going to be. They just have to respond.
Yes.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir. And I'll remind our viewers that you have kindly contributed a number of images that they can see if they scroll down.
That would be good. And here's what I did. Here's my intention was these are not in the books. These are images that I bought in the last 6 months.
Oh, really?
Or that I've acquired recently. So it's a lot of vernacular, and there's some vintage, meaning like 19th century. So that was my intention, was just to take people to some pictures that were unfamiliar. If you've been around me, these are pictures that haven't been in the dialogue much. we'll square that away and have some fun. Thank you, boss.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Take care.